Hey guys, this is Nirpam with the Underwater Photography Guide and Blue Water Photo. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the editor-in-chief of the Underwater Photography Guide and the marketing director at Blue Water Photo. I lead a lot of underwater photo workshops with Blue Water Travel all around the world, like to Socorro, as you can see these whales behind me are from. And I wanted to create this class on how to organize your photos in Lightroom as a prerequisite for my future workshops, and to also just provide some information to underwater photographers out there all around the world. So without further ado, I'll get into Lightroom. I'll share my screen so you guys can see Lightroom, how it works. And this class is going to go over how to import your photos in Lightroom, how to organize your photos in Lightroom, how to sort your photos in Lightroom, and then finally how to export your photos in Lightroom. I won't be covering editing. That is going to be in the next class, but I think these are all very important tools to use, because when it comes down to it, Lightroom is an organizational tool more than it is an editing tool. Photoshop is really Adobe's editing tool. Lightroom is a way for photographers to get everything down, quickly edit, and get that out to their clients as they need to. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys Lightroom. All right, so Lightroom is a computer program. This is Lightroom. This is what happens when you open Lightroom. Now, Lightroom is non-destructive, which means that it's a computer program. It doesn't actually change the photos on your hard drive. So it will only read your photos, edit your photos in the program, and then export a photo that is separate from the original photo with your edits. So it doesn't actually destroy or change the original photo. So that's important to know. Now, in order to open Adobe Lightroom, I'm going to go ahead and close it. You can go to your start window and search Adobe Lightroom, and you can click open. And this will open Lightroom. Now, if any of you guys have ever edited video, or you've opened a Word document, you would know that every program has a file. So if you're creating a Word document, your document has a file. That's what your document actually is. The same thing goes for Lightroom. Lightroom actually has a file that's called a catalog. Now, generally, I recommend editing just in one catalog file for all of your photos. But if you do ever need to know where that file is stored, I highly recommend you find out. Now, usually that file will be stored in your pictures folder on your hard drive. So if you go to, I'm going to quit this. If you, in Windows, you can open up File Explorer, or you can open up on a Mac Finder. And if you go to your PC, your C drive, users, your name, and then finally pictures, or in this case, pictures here, you'll eventually find a folder called Lightroom with all your catalog files. Now, this class, I'm going to be teaching on my travel hard drive, so you can have it right here. And my class is Adobe Lightroom Presentation. So my actual catalog file for this class, I decided to store it right here. And in order to open that file, I can actually open it from here, or again, I can go into Windows and I can type in Lightroom. So I'll go ahead and double click this file. And now that catalog has opened up as Lightroom on my computer. If you ever get stuck and for some reason your catalog isn't opening or it's showing the wrong catalog, just remember that when you do open this catalog, you've got this file called the lock file right here. If your Lightroom ever crashes and then you can't get back onto it, remember that you can actually delete this lock file, and that'll kind of restart that file for you, and then you can get back into your file. So that's what happens if your computer ever crashes. Now, if you are on a PC and you ever want to know if your Lightroom is getting close to crashing, you just hit Control-Shift-Escape, and you can see your memory usage and how much memory that Lightroom is using. So often it's actually using quite a bit, and On my last video that I tried to film, I crashed Lightroom, which is why I am refilming now. So this is Lightroom. As I said, Lightroom is a non-destructive program, and it's an organizational tool. So Lightroom is divided into 4 little bins. You've got this bar on the left. This is your organizational bar. So this folder right here, all these folders are being used to basically show you your hard drive, show you how your photos are organized, and that's where you're going to go to find your photos. On the right side, you've got your development tools or your editing tools, and that's where you do any action that you need to do to a photo. Now remember, this action happens inside of Lightroom. It doesn't happen outside of Lightroom, but that's where you do these actions. On the top screen, we have our general tools. So our library tool that we use for viewing photos, the development tool that we use for editing photos, the map that you can do to show locations, book, slideshow, print, and web. Again, all of these tools, they're useful, but not for our purposes right now. We are just talking about organizing inside of Lightroom. Because this is a new catalog, it shows me all the new things. Okay, great. So on the bottom, this is where you see your photos in the full list of photos, as well as a few other tools like the toolbar down here. And again, this will help you see where your photos are, and I'll get to that in a second. So the first thing that you want to consider is, how are your photos organized on your hard drive? And the reason you want to consider that is because your photos have to live on a physical location on your hard drive. Now, for those of you that don't know what a hard drive is it's basically a place where everything is stored on your computer. And if you go to your PC, if you do have a PC, you can see these are all your hard drives. So if I go into my travel hard drive, you can see that there's folders in this hard drive. And if you think of your life or all the photos that you ever take as physical pictures, you would want to put them in a filing cabinet. So that filing cabinet is your hard drive. And in your hard drive, you have folders where you put the pictures. So in this case, I'm teaching a class. I created a folder called Adobe Lightroom Presentation. Under Adobe Lightroom Presentation, I've got my pictures folder. Now, most of you, whether you're on a Mac or a PC, are going to be putting photos in your pictures folder. The way you find your pictures folder is you go to your file viewer, then you can go to the left bar and you'll see pictures. Now, if you're on a Mac, you can go to Finder, and pictures should also be on your left bar, but you may need to change the settings on the Mac to make sure that pictures actually show up in Finder on your left bar. But generally, you're going to be working in your pictures folder because that's where you're putting your pictures. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to think of, what do I do with my life? How do I want to organize all these photos that I have? If you're taking photos all the time, it might be easier to think of a location that you took the photos rather than a date. If you're never taking photos, then you might want to consider a date, and you could create folders like a new folder. Today is the 23rd of March, so you could do March 23rd, 2020. And now you have dates as your folder. I personally don't like this method. I like to think of the world in terms of places. So I travel a lot. My first folder that I would start with is North America. And in North America, the photos that I'm going to give as an example are from Socorro, which is a group of islands off the coast of Mexico. So I have the country, Mexico. I might also have the United States because that's where I live. And I might have Canada because that's another place I've been to in North America. And all of these would have photos from different trips. So if I go to Mexico, now I have Socorro 2022. This is my Socorro trip that I just came back from. And I have some photos that I took on the Socorro trip in this folder. So if you've got a bunch of folders already with your photos in them, all organized on your hard drive, the next thing you want to do is import them into Lightroom. If not, and you're taking photos from an SD card for the first time, I'm going to show you how to bring those into Lightroom, but there's actually 2 different methods. So this here is method 1 for bringing photos into Lightroom from your hard drive. The first thing I want to do is go into Lightroom, and then I'm going to click Import. This will bring up a window that will show you where all your photos are that you're importing from. So on the left side, this is your source folder. So you want to find your hard drive. You can see this is my travel hard drive. Adobe Lightroom presentation. This is where I'm giving the presentation. Here's my sample pictures folder. And now I can go to North America, Mexico, and Socorro. Now, for most of you, your pictures folder is actually going to be a little bit trickier to find. You're going to have to go to hard drive C, and then you'll go to users, find your name, and then click pictures, and whatever pictures will be there. So I'm going to go to Socorro 2022. Okay, so it's found all of my Socorro 2022 photos, and you can see these are the ones that I had in that folder. Now, you can see that all of the photos are selected with these checkboxes. What that means is every photo that's selected will be imported into Lightroom. If there's any photos that you don't want to select, you can see this one's black and this one's black. And so they're probably not good photos. And I don't want any of these photos. You can uncheck them, but it's actually quicker to deselect photos in Lightroom than it is to do that here. So I generally don't use that tool. I just import everything that I have in that folder and I put it straight into Lightroom so I can know what's going on. So I'll leave a few of those unchecked as an example. Now on the right side, remember, this is where you do your actions to your photos. So on the right side, I have different actions that can be done when I'm importing the photos. So right here, I always click don't import suspected duplicates. And the reason I do that is because if I have a bunch of photos that are the same photo all scrambled all over my hard drive, maybe I'm not the most organized person in the world, you don't want them all to be in Lightroom in different places. You just want one photo to edit in Lightroom, and you can actually show that photo in different places, but you just want one to edit. So I click don't import suspected duplicates. Now, the next thing that I always select under develop settings are, well, backing up a step, your develop settings are basically going to be edits that will be applied to all your photos that you import upon import. Now, generally, you don't want to have any, so you would click none, but there is one setting that I always leave on personally. So if you go to develop settings and you go down to optics and you go down to CA correction, this will add chromatic aberration correction to every photo. Chromatic aberration is a weird fringing that you get on some photos with high contrast. Adding the correction won't affect the photos that don't have it, but it'll help the photos that do, so that's why I always add it. Now you can also add metadata, so that means you can add different things, like different types of info, camera info, GPS, like location, anything like that, to all these photos if you really want to. You can add different descriptions. There's all sorts of metadata that you can add. And you might be wondering, like, why do I need to add that? Well, later on, you can use that data as an organizational tool if you so choose. So what I like to add, though, is called keywords. And now what keywords are, it's basically like tagging something on Instagram with a hashtag. You want to tag your photos with keywords so that later on, when you search them, those photos will show up. And it's a super, super powerful tool. So let me give you an example. I took these photos in Mexico. I took them underwater. I took them scuba diving. I took them with a Sony. I took them in winter. I took them in February. So there's a lot of different keywords that you can add. But when you're adding them on your import, you want to make sure that you're adding them kind of in a general way that'll apply to all of these photos, because you can add them more specifically later on once you've imported all the photos. So with that, I am going to click import. Oh, and before I click import, I just want to mention, see this little box at the top here? You want to make sure that add is selected. When add is selected, all those photos that are already on your hard drive will be imported into Lightroom, but they will not be copied in a way that they would end up somewhere else on your hard drive. So you want to click Add if you already have photos that are on your hard drive. If you're trying to import photos from an SD card, that's when you would use Copy. So I'll get into that in my second example. Now I'm going to click Import. Okay, you can see it's taking some time to import them and read all the files from that location. And you can see this spinning wheel. It means it's having a little bit of trouble. And you can also see that takes a lot of memory. So usually when you import, you want to just give it a couple seconds, let it all import in. All right, so now on this left side, you see I have my first hard drive. That's this Travel L. That's my travel hard drive. Underneath, I have the folder, Socorro 2022. But what happens if all the photos that you have are all in all these different folders from different trips and you don't know where those locations are and you want to see that same organization that you have on your hard drive? All you have to do is right-click the folder and select Show Parent Folder. And now you can see it's in Mexico. Well, if I do it again and I do another Show Parent Folder, now I've got North America, Mexico, Score 2022. So all of my North America shots are going to be in Lightroom, all the ones that I've imported. We know that there's other folders in North America, but they don't have photos in them yet. So when they have photos, they'll actually appear. And why don't I go ahead and move a photo. Actually, yeah, I'm not going to do that now. It'll get too complicated. So, all right. So we have our photos in Lightroom. In most importantly, the library tab. Again, the library tab is used for viewing your photos, organizing them, sorting them, and deciding which ones you want to edit and which ones you want to not edit. So remember, this import was only done for photos that exist already on your hard drive. So if you like to take your photos, download them directly onto a folder in your hard drive, this is how you import them to Lightroom. Now, if you want to import them directly from your SD card and get them into Lightroom that way, you actually have to go ahead and create that folder. So let's say that I want to create a new folder in Lightroom. When you create a new folder in Lightroom, that change is also made on your hard drive. So that even though Lightroom doesn't edit the photos, it can create folders, it can move photos around, it can do a lot when it comes to organization. And generally, you want to create new folders in Lightroom. You don't want to go into your hard drive and then say, okay, I'm under Mexico, Score 2022, I'm going to create a day 2 folder. You don't want to do this. You don't want to create a day 2 folder because Lightroom is going to know that change happened. You can see here, nothing changed. Lightroom still doesn't know this change happened where there's a day 2. So let's go ahead and get rid of this folder. Now, what's cool about Lightroom is that you can, let's say that these are actually all my day 1 photos. This is my Socorro day 1 photo. So I actually want to reorganize this folder, and I'm going to add a folder inside of Socorro 2022 that's called day 1. So this is day 1 from the trip. Okay, so now we have a day 1 folder. But notice that even though I created this day 1 folder, there's no photos in here. So how do I get my photos from here to here? You could do it on your hard drive, but if you did it on your hard drive, Lightroom would not know that you actually moved it to day 1. So what you want to do is you want to go into Lightroom, you want to go to your Socorro 2022 folders. If you do Control A or Command A, that will select all the photos. And then you can drag them to day 1. this will move the files on the disk, and Lightroom will give you a little warning saying, hey, all these folder or files, they're going to be moved into your day one folder. And I clicked OK. This will take a little bit of time to move all of these 900 photos into that folder. Almost there. And you can see all this is going to be happening on the hard drive as well. Because I'm streaming right now, my computer's having trouble handling all this data moving around. You can see all these photos are moving, in fact. So while this happens, let's go ahead and create a day 2 folder. The reason I'm creating this day 2 folder is because I went ahead, I took a bunch more photos, I went diving, and now I've got all these photos on an SD card. What do? How do I get this onto my computer and into Lightroom at the same time? This is where we get into method 2 of importing all your photos into Lightroom. All right, day 1's almost finished. Okay, these didn't move over. There we go. All right, so now we have day 1. And these have all the photos organized from Lightroom. All right, so now let's create our day 2 folder. I'm going to go to create folder inside Core 2022, day 2. And before I hit that import button, I'm actually creating that folder in my hard drive because I want all my organization done before I try to do it in the import dialog box. I find the import dialog box to be very confusing. It's very easy to make a mistake. It's better just to create your folder right in here while you're in the library on the left side under your hard drive. Now I've got a day 2 folder. If you open up Lightroom, if you open up your hard drive, you can see day 2 is created. There's nothing in here. All right, so I have an SD card connected to the computer. It has no Sakura photos in there. I apologize. It just has a random collection of photos that I took of my brother at a play, at his high school play. So anyway, I'm going to click import. And the photos that I'm going to grab are not being read. 1 second, I'm going to have to go down into my computer and fix that real quick. Okay. All right, so you can see what Lightroom did is it actually identified this device in the top left corner as being an SD card or a memory card of some sort. Lightroom will handle this card a little bit differently. Watch what happens to this add button right here when I click my SD card. All of a sudden, add went to copy. Now, the reason add went to copy is because Lightroom is going to take all the photos from that SD card and physically copy it into a folder on your hard drive. And this is where things get tricky, and this is where you want to make sure that you don't make any mistakes. You want to determine where on the hard drive these photos are going. You don't want it to just create random photos everywhere all of a sudden, because that will mess up your organization. So bear with me. This is how you do it. I'm not going to import all the photos because it'll crash my computer like it did on my last lesson, kind of screw things up. So what I'm going to do is for demonstrational purposes, I'm going to uncheck all of the photos you can see here, and I'm only going to add a few. Let's make them underwater photos, some macro photos, maybe a couple topside. Let's do an octopus. Okay, so these are the photos that I'm going to add, and I'm going to copy them over. Now, on the right side, remember, this is where actions happen, right? So the most important thing, the thing that I actually start with, I work my way down to the top when I'm importing photos and I'm copying them over, and that's because I want to make sure I get the destination folder right. If you wanted to create a destination folder while you're in Lightroom in the import dialog box, you could do that here by selecting into subfolder and then creating a subfolder. So this would be your day 1. Now, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to uncheck that box because I've already created it. Like I said, it's more important to get the organization right when you're in your library dialog box before. So I can go to travel here's my presentation. Okay, pictures, North America, Mexico, Socorro, day 2. This is the folder I want to import everything into. But what's really important is to make sure that you have under organized, it should say into one folder. You want all of these photos to go into one folder. If you select by date, look at all these additional folders Lightroom is going to create. And that's because Lightroom, for some reason, people like to organize by date. But I really think that organizing by location, if you're a scuba diver, if you're an underwater photographer, and then by day based on the trip, is going to be much more easy to kind of look through in your hard drive. Now, again, this organization helps you in your hard drive. You won't need that in Lightroom because you have all these keywords that you're adding. But we'll get to that. So when I click on day 2, let's make sure that instead of organizing by date, we're into one folder. This will just move the photos into that folder. And for keywords, I'm going to say this is day, I don't even know what to say here, macro. This is macro. These are anemones. I mean, it's important to know one of the mistakes that you can make is I see that there are anemone photos here, but if I type in anemones in my keywords, it applies to all of them. So you don't want anemones applying to your beach. So let's just call it ocean. And there's plenty of keywords that you can do. Cold water. This is all cold water. I'm applying chromatic aberration correction because I do want to make those setting changes and actually apply those edits when I'm importing. So I do that with CA correction. Metadata, I don't want to add any extras right now. I don't feel like renaming any files. And again, I want to check don't import suspected duplicates. So I'm going to go ahead and click import. This is what crashed my computer last time. So when you import and you actually copy files over, Lightroom has to copy those files into your hard drive at the same time it imports. That can be a major overload for Lightroom, and you can have your Lightroom crash. So I'm refilming this because my Lightroom crashed last time and it created an organizational mess. All right, so we've got our day 2 photos, which are our Socorro day 2 photos, and then our day 1 photos from the same trip, which are in a different folder. Now, if you actually go into your hard drive and you go to Socorro, you can see there's a day 1 and there's a day 2. These photos have actually been copied over all the way from our Nikon Z6 SD card, which can be found here. And I guess I'm having a few connection issues with that drive because it's not showing up again in the drive, but it's been copied over from that SD card. So now we have our photos in Lightroom. They are organized in Lightroom. You've got a folder system. You've imported them directly from your hard drive, and you've also imported them from your SD card, so you know how to do both. If you look on the right side, when I click on a folder, all these keywords have been attributed to this folder. Same with this one. Everything is organized, and that's awesome. So now that we've done that, it's time to view the photos, organize them specifically one by one, and decide which ones do you want to delete and which ones do you want to edit. Now, there's some really cool shortcuts that you can do to figure out how to find the ones that you want to delete and find the ones that you want to edit. So let's say I'm done with a day of diving and I just want to start editing my day 1 photos because that's what I usually start with. I will just go into the day 1 folder, and if you click G, it'll bring you to the grid view, which I'm already in the library, and that will show you all the photos that you took on the first day. If you were to click day 2, that'll show you all the photos you took on the second day. So I go to day 1, I see all my photos that I have here, and what I will do is I will start looking at photos. So I double click, and now I've got a photo right here. And using your arrow keys on the keyboard, you can actually click through photos. These are some of my test shots at home. My messy kitchen, the boat. So I'm looking through photos, and that's great. One of the cool shortcuts that you can do is you can actually hit F, and that will bring you to full screen mode. and then you can click escape to go back. So that's one cool way to view your photos. Another cool way to view your photos is called Surveyor View. And this is great for seeing all the different photos that look, well, a bunch of photos that look the same and trying to decide which one you like the best. So let's say these photos look the same. I hold the control button or the command button on my keyboard, and I just click on the photos that kind of look the same or different if you really want to. And then you click N. And this shows you the photos in Surveyor View so that you can see each photo and then decide which one you like and which one you don't. So the question is, how do you decide if there's a photo that you like and you want to get rid of it, a photo that you don't like and you want to get rid of it versus a photo you like and you want to edit? Well, there's two easy keys to remember. The first is how to delete a photo. So to delete a photo, you want to hit X, and it'll flag the photo as rejected. It won't delete it automatically, but it'll flag it as a photo that you want to delete. So the way you do that is you double click on the photo, and that'll bring it into the view. Or you can actually do this from the grid view as well. You can click on the photo, or you can do it from Surveyor View. But you click on the photo that you want to flag as rejected, and then you click X. Now you can't see it happening as well in Surveyor View, so it's easier to see here. If you look at the lower bar where the photos are, if I click X, and then I go to the next one, X, you can see all of these are highlighted or really grayed out so that they're a little more transparent. That means those photos are rejected. The same thing happens if you go back to grid view. You can see these are grayed out. So these are rejected. So this is a rejected photo, X, X. So that's how you find and identify the photos that you don't like. Now, when you're ready to delete them, what you do is you go into your grid view. So I would click, if I'm already in my normal view, I click G. That brings me to the grid view. Then you can go to attribute and click flag. So this black flag right here will bring up all the photos that you have that are rejected. So again, you go to grid view and then attribute and then click the black flag on the right, and that will be your rejected photos only. The reason I do this is I always want to see all the photos that are rejected before I permanently delete them. Now, to permanently delete them, or to delete them out of Lightroom, what you do is you go to Photo, then you go to Delete Rejected Photos, and that shortcut is, as you can see, Control Backspace. So now this dialog box comes up and asks me two things. Do I want to delete them from the disk, or do I want them to remove them from Lightroom? Now, you always generally want to delete them from the disk if you know these are the photos you want to delete. This will take them off the hard drive, it'll put them in your recycle bin, and that means you'll actually save that space by deleting them. And that's what I recommend doing. If you just want to remove them from Lightroom and you don't want to edit them, you can click remove them from Lightroom, but generally click delete from disk. Now these photos, if I go into my hard drive and I go to my folder, pictures, North America, Mexico, Scuro, and I went to day one, those photos no longer exist in here. You can't really tell since there's a bunch of photos, but they are no longer here. All right, so that's how you delete photos. But on the other hand, what if you want to pick the ones to edit? So in order to do that, the first thing you have to do is you have to click this black flag again so that you can see all your other photos, because right now your folder is being filtered based on the rejected photos. So you click on that, and now you can see all the photos without a filter. And let's say I've got some I want to edit. This one looks pretty good over here, I think. So I want to edit that one. I'm going to go ahead and click P. Then I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to click P. And it's a lot harder to see the ones that you want to edit. The only way you can actually see is at the top left of the corner of the photo down at the bottom here. It's got a little white flag. And the same if you went back to the grid view with clicking G, you can see there's a little white flag right there. So I'm going to go through and just pick a few different ones. I want to edit this one. I'm going to do a P. I want to edit this one. I'm going to do a P. So in order to view the ones that you're ready to edit, what you do is you go to flag and you click filter based on flagged only. So I always do flagged only, and that's how you see all the ones that you've selected. Now you can see all of these are selected. And these are the ones you want to edit. So now you can go through and you can actually click, okay, I'm going to start editing this. I'm going to start editing this. I'm going to start editing that and that. So you can actually just flip through it and then edit as you need to. And then to edit, you click develop, but we're not going to get into any edits right now. So that is how you select the ones that you want to edit. Now, there's a few more tools that you can actually use. Now remember, I'm back in my folder. Ooh. Okay, there we go. If I click the flag again, you can see all the photos. Now there's a few more specific tools that you can use that can help with organization. I actually don't like using the pick system, the flag system for picking the ones I want to edit. What I like to do is I like to create a gradient of photos. I like to pick my best photos, my worst photos, and the ones in between. So usually what I'll do is I'll use the star system. And what that does is it rates a photo based on whatever your star rating is. So 1 star, 2 star, 3, 4, or 5 star. My 5-star photos generally are the ones I'm done editing. My 4-star photos are the ones I like and I'm working on them. My 3-star photos are the ones I'm not as sure about. My 2-star, my 1-star are the ones I'm probably going to get rid of. So for an example, this one, let's say this one is just done being edited. It really isn't, but I can do, let's see, I'll do a quick edit right here. Quick edit. Okay, this is a cool edit. I think it looks good. All right, so this is done. So I'm going to click 5-star, and I go back to my library. That photo is a 5-star. And if I go back to my grid view by clicking G, let's say that I want to. I'm working on editing this photo right here. So I've started editing, but I'm not quite done. That's a 4-star. And then let's say I am not so sure about this photo. Maybe that's a 3-star. I really don't like this photo. That's a 2-star. And then a 1-star. I'm thinking about getting rid of it unless I can do something with it. So I've got my 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, and 1-star. So let's go back to the library view. And I can go to my folder and I click G for the grid view. Now I can view all my 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, and 1 stars. The way you do that is you go back up to this attribute tag right here. And here are all my 5-star photos. So this is the photo that I was editing before. Again, really easy to find. It's under 5-star. Now, if I want to look at the 4 stars, notice how there's a 4-star here and a 5-star here. That's because this little icon right here is selected rating is greater or equal to. So if you only want to view the 4 stars, you have to move down. So you have to select this icon with the left button on the mouse, go to rating is equal to, and now you'll see the 4 stars, and then the 3 stars, and the 2 stars, and the 1 stars. So you can go through and you can visualize all the different stars. Well, similar to that, you also have colors. Colors are a good way to organize. And remember, I clicked the 5-star and I'm back to my view of all of them. That unselects that. So colors are a great way to visualize photos if you are more of a visual person and you're looking at your library grid and you're just trying to figure out, how, let's say you all the photos that you're done editing are blue, and all the ones you're working on are green, and you want to quickly go through them, and instead of seeing stars, you can actually see the color. Well, the shortcuts for those are actually pretty easy as well. It's 6, 7, 8, and 9. So, for example, 6 right here, you can see on the bottom it turned red, so the label is now red. You can also view that right here, it's red. 7 is yellow, 8 is green, and 9 is blue. So if you go back up here, you can actually select, if you're in your grid view, you see the attribute tag, you can go to green, That'll show you all your green photos, blue, all your blue photos, red, all your red photos. So that's another way to organize and another way to think about things. So everything is really up to you in terms of how you're organizing and thinking about things. One thing that I forgot to mention is when you're viewing your photos in the grid view, you can actually increase the size of the thumbnails if you'd like. And maybe that will help you see things a little better. There's your colors. There's your, well, there should be some stars intermingled in here, but they're a little bit harder to see. Where are the stars? The stars should usually show up at the bottom of the picture. Let's go ahead and get to the stars. Okay, so the stars should show up like that. Oh, they're probably way at the bottom down here. I don't know. So they're in there somewhere. You'll see some starred photos pop up. Now, all right, let's see. Okay, I'm back in my grid view. Now, one of the cool things though is you can really go beyond things that are simple like star ratings and colors and flags. Those are all simple tools for organization. These are all simple tools to identify things that you want to edit or that you're done editing or you're not sure about. So I usually use those tools to just figure out these are the ones I want to edit and these aren't. And what I'll usually go through is I'll just go through and be like, okay, so this one is an X, that's a reject, 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 reject. And I'll go through really quickly and just kind of get through them. This one is a pick. I'm going to edit that one. This one is a 4. I want to edit that one. These are all rejects. And then so I just kind of keep going down and down and down and down. And I go through them and edit, you know, the ones I want to. This one I'm not too sure about because the fish is pointed away, so it's 3. Now, you know, I'll periodically go to photo, delete rejected photos, and then I just delete them from the disk. And these are all gone. So I just deleted a bunch of photos off the bat, just like that. Went through, I found the ones that I want to edit. I can go through, these are my picks. So it's very, very easy to go through. But if you want to do a little bit more than that, what you have to do is you have to use keywords. And keywords are an awesome way, like I said, to look for photos based on descriptions, based on actual searchable terms. Now, one of the cool things is you can actually add keywords after your import on the right side, where under keywording. And you do that the exact same way. All you have to do is select the photos that you want to tag. So these are all sharks. So let me find all the sharks here. And I'll actually go through and I'll spend some time to actually just find all the sharks. And I will add the word shark. Or even better, what I'll do is I'll actually go to my 5-star photos, the ones I'm done editing. I'll click that, and then I'll go back to keywords and add the word shark. And that way, all the edited photos that I have that keyword, and they're all good there. Now, Lightroom will actually suggest some keywords for you as well. So Socorro was suggested. Cold water macro, those are all suggested. Underwater photos is good. 2022 is good. So you can actually add some suggestions to your list of keywords. And keywords should be separated by commas in case you didn't get that already. So that's all good. But what happens, you know, when you're back in your grid view, you're back in your library view, and you're wanting to find those sharks? Well, the way you do that is you go to, remember, these are the library filters at the top. Go to text. And you go to any searchable field contains, or you could go to keywords. It's probably the easier one to do. And then just do contains shark. There we go. These are all the photos that I tagged as shark. So this is a huge advantage because now you can go to all the photos that you tagged as Socorro. Oh, this is the only one I tagged as Socorro. I thought I tagged more. Okay, diving, or 2022, or cold water. Oh, cold water, I think. Oh, this is good. This is really good. So I looked up cold water because I knew I used that keyword. If you look on the left side, I have day one selected. So this is my folder that's selected. No photos in day one have that keyword, but if I click Socorro, now I can look up cold water, and all the full photos that are in day two, because they're cold water photos, and I tagged them with the keyword cold water, they actually showed up. But again, if I select day one Socorro and I try cold water, nothing shows up because there's no cold water photos there. So it's a super, super, super powerful organizational tool, and you can go to different levels of your folder system and actually look up based on those keywords. Now, beyond that, there's actually a few kind of neat tools that you can use in your metadata to search your photos by metadata. And this is more for learning underwater photography. I think that the metadata tools and the metadata library filters are actually the coolest filters because they can teach you things about your photography, about your skill set. And the way that you view those is you go into your metadata under library filters when you're in the grid view in the library, and you can actually go ahead and you can see that there's a few types of metadata that you can look at. There's dates, cameras, lenses, and other labels like colors. Now, what's even cooler is that you can select something like camera, and you can actually go a little deeper. So you could go to lens, right, which is already here. You can see I shot with a 16-35, and these are all the 16-35 photos I took. Here's my Canon 8-15 photos. But even cooler than that, I can go to focal length, and I can see which photos I shot at 16 millimeters, which ones I shot at 15 millimeters. I can also see shutter speed, and I can go to shutter speed, and now I can really start to learn underwater photography. I can see these are the photos I took at 1/160th of a second. See how the backgrounds are a little bit darker. These are the photos I took at 1/125th of a second. The backgrounds are a little lighter. These are the photos I took at 1/100th. These are the photos I took at 1/125th, and that was because it was a really dark day. So this is a super, super useful tool to learn photography. You can also go to aperture, and then you can see, all right, what does a shallow aperture look like? You know, I used a shallow aperture because it was a dark day on this photo. Or I go back to the grid view. What does a deep aperture look like? You know, what does a photo at f/22 look like? Why am I shooting f/22? Is it because there's a sunball in the background, and am I trying to get the ambient light out of the photo? So all of these tools and techniques that you're using underwater will show up here in your metadata, and you can compare photos that way. Again, ISO, you can see, you know, with ISO speed, how grainy does it get at ISO 2000? I don't know why this was at ISO 2000 or ISO 1000, which was really useful for this photo right here, where I'm trying to take some photos in low light, and now you can look and there's some grain. So it's pretty cool because you can really see how do your photos change based on the settings. Another thing that you can do is you can search by location, city. If you do fill that out under your metadata, when you're importing, you can actually add the location field. You can add the city, state, wherever you are, country. So that's an additional method beyond just using the folder system to actually like locate your folders and photos and see where they are. Camera type, if you want to see different cameras. Dates are really important. I can go to my 2022 photos, February. I can see all the photos I took on the 21st of February, and this is what was happening on that day. Or I can see all the photos I took on the 22nd, you know, the next day. So I don't need to use that folder system. All of it's in the metadata, and all of it can be sorted using Lightroom. The reason I have this folder system is that because eventually you might run into a situation where you don't have Lightroom and you need to use these folders in your hard drive to really look through everything. So that's why the folder system's even there. Lightroom is so advanced, you don't technically need it, but I recommend having both, doubling up on your organization and making sure you're good in both your hard drive and then also in Lightroom. So that is organization in Lightroom when it comes to, you know, looking at your photos, trying to decide which ones you want to pick, which ones you want to edit, and which ones you want to tag with keywords, which ones you want to look up. Now, let's say I've finished editing a few photos, and the reason I use that 5-star system is because that's how I identify the ones I'm ready to export. I don't like to export my photos one at a time. I like to do a batch export of photos. So to do that, I will actually go to my attributes under the grid view in the library. I'll go to 5 stars. These are all my 5-star photos that I'm ready to export. Let's add a few more in there just to make sure that we've got a batch edit going on. I'm going to export this one, 5-star. I'm going to export this one, another 5-star. All right, so here are all my 5-star photos. Before I export, I want to create another location in Lightroom where all my edited photos are going to go. I don't want them just to go back into my hard drive and just be lost to all that large folder of photos, right? I want to be able to find them later on. So what I actually do is I create a folder in my hard drive, but again, I don't create it in the hard drive. I create it using Lightroom by going to whatever the trip is, and then I will right click and I'll create the folder inside that says edited photos. Now this created a folder. Again, there's no photos here yet, but if I go back into my hard drive, you can see there is the folder edited photos under Socorro. So that makes it pretty easy. You can go to your Socorro trip and there's all your edited photos. You're probably not going to have as many because you only have a few per day. So that's why it's good just to have like one folder in that trip folder. So one of the themes of this is don't edit or don't create your folders in your hard drive, create them in Lightroom. The reason I have that theme is because watch what happens if you change your folder in your hard drive. So if for whatever reason you move your folder or you change the name of the folder, anything like that, Lightroom is going to lose that folder. Remember, Lightroom is just reading your photos. It's just taking your photos, trying to figure out what they are. It's not actually editing anything. It's just reading things. So watch what happened as soon as I changed the name of that folder. It's called, I changed it to Socorro 2023. In Lightroom has lost it. See all these question marks? That means Lightroom has lost those photos. So if I go back here, I can try to edit these photos, but again, it's going to say the file cannot be found. So Lightroom's lost these photos. If you ever see that question mark symbol, don't panic. Just find the folder where the files are. So you go to right click over the folder, find missing folder, and I know that I've changed it. So let's find it over here. Socorro 2023. This is the missing folder. I select the folder, and now Lightroom has found everything again, and we're good to go. And it's actually changed the name to Socorro 2023. So rather than doing that and getting into a mess and changing your folders in your hard drive, the best thing to do is to actually just change them in Lightroom. So you want to rename it. If you want to rename it, then we can go back to Socorro 2022 and you can rename it in Lightroom. And now if you go into your folder in your hard drive, boom, you've got Lightroom and you've got Socorro 2022, sorry. So I just want to emphasize that that's how you want to do things. You want to edit your photos or folders and change your folders in Lightroom. Now, let's say you want to move photos from one folder to the next. Again, do this in Lightroom. Don't do it over here because then Lightroom's going to have trouble finding those photos. So the way you can do that is, let's say we want these boat photos. We want to move them to day 2 because for some reason I actually took them in day 2. Well, all you got to do is you can go to your day 1, select those boat photos. I'm hitting Control so they're both highlighted. Let's add another couple of photos. And all you have to do is drag them over to the left and you drag them to day 2. Let me make sure that Lightroom understood my missing photos. Okay, cool. All right, so let's try that again. So I'm going to select these photos. Okay, I'm going to try that one more time. I think this just has to do with Lightroom. Okay, I think, yeah, this just has to do with me purposefully losing the photos. It's not missing here, but I think Lightroom's just screwing up. So I'm going to restart Lightroom real quick. Yeah, I think I just overloaded the memory a little bit. All right, let's open this catalog file. So again, see how Windows isn't opening Lightroom for me? I'm going to actually go ahead and go into here, go to my Lightroom class, open the catalog file from here. Okay, now hopefully I didn't overly confuse Lightroom. I'm going to go back to my grid view. I'm in my day 1 folder, and let's try to move a couple photos to my day 2. All right, so Lightroom is no longer confused. If Lightroom ever gets confused, exit out, exit back in. It's what you have to do with any technology. Anyway, so this says moving files on disk. It's basically like giving you a warning. It's going to say, hey, these photos are actually moving in your hard drive. Anytime Lightroom does something on your hard drive, it tells you. So you click move. And now if you go to your photos, these 2 files are in the day 2 folder. Again, I just dragged them over. I can drag them back. And so that's how you can move photos around from folder to folder. So that's a pretty cool tool. All right, now I've moved it again. Now, if you actually go into your hard drive, you can see that, I did, in fact, move them on the hard drive as well. Day 2 has some extra photos that are from the Sony, and this is a Nikon camera right here. So this is Sony. So yeah, that's how you know photos moved in both. All right, so that was a quick aside. I'll label different chapters during the video so that you guys know what's going on. I'm ready to export. I've moved all my photos. I found all my missing folders. All that's done. These are just a few cool tricks to like find different things or if Lightroom messes up. But let's say I'm ready to export. I'm ready to get that photo into an edited folder or edited photos folder, so that I can send it to a client or send it to whoever. Because keep in mind, I go to my edited photos folder and there's nothing in here. So I need this photo to exist. I need to actually take that photo, make the edits, put it back into my filing cabinet. And the way to do that is you go to all your 5-star photos, you do Control A, that selects all of these, right click and go to export. Now you can click export over here, or you can click export over here. Now the export dialog box will show up. Ooh. Okay, there we go. And you want to find that folder that you created on the left side, edited photos. So you go to a specific folder, choose, pictures, North America, Mexico, Socorro, edited photos. All right, now I've chosen edited photos. You can actually create a subfolder. So let's say you want watermarked photos. You can actually do watermarked photos if you want to. But in this case, these photos are not going to be watermarked. I'll show you how to do that soon. So then the next thing that you would look at is file naming. So you can rename your files here. I don't personally do that, so you can ignore this. If you really want to rename them, you can do them to different kinds of names, the dates, sequence, custom name, whatever you want. I don't edit videos in Lightroom. That's something important I didn't mention. I edit videos using Premiere Pro. I highly recommend doing video editing with a video editing software, not in Lightroom. Now, file settings. This is the most important thing. If you're just a normal photographer or just a normal person, you're probably going to want a JPEG photo. This is the file format that the internet uses, the world uses. This is the file that's going to look good anywhere you go. Now, if you want to print your photo, you might use a different image format. So you could use TIFF. That's the pretty common one for printing your photos. And then finally, if you want to give people a raw file that they can put it into their Lightroom and see all of your edits, you give them a DNG. And this is a raw file that Adobe uses so that if you put it into Lightroom or you put it into Photoshop, that person will see all of your edits. So when it comes to a DNG format, I usually keep the fast load data checked, but I uncheck lossy compression or embed the raw file. Now, if you're doing a TIFF photo and you're doing this for print, I usually use sRGB, although you could use Adobe RGB if your camera initially takes that. But I would usually do sRGB, no compression, and then the highest bit depth possible, because that's what you want for printing. But when it comes to JPEGs, you want your quality at 100% because Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, any modern social media software, website, is going to compress those files anyway. So keep your quality at 100% because you could use those files anywhere if it's like that. Unless you have your own website, in which case you probably know what the parameters for your website and what your website platform can handle are. That color space, I put in sRGB. The reason for that is because if you put it in another color space, most platforms on the internet, whether it's email, Facebook, Instagram, any website, anywhere you share it on the internet, it's going to kind of show up with weird colors unless you have it in sRGB. And that's because the internet runs on sRGB. So even though these color spaces have more color options, sRGB is actually kind of the universal color space, and that's what I use. The file limit, I don't usually limit the file size of my photos unless I need to, and sometimes that might be for a photo contest or it might be for a website, so I don't have anything there. Now, you can actually resize the image here under image sizing. I do that for websites, so I resize them to fit 800 pixels in the longest edge. But if you don't have a specific reason to resize the image, again, that's just going to cut out quality, so don't hit that button. But resolution, I keep at 300 pixels per inch, and that has to do more with printing than it does the actual file settings. So I don't do any output sharpening. Now, when it comes to metadata, if you don't like to have people know what settings you use to take the photo, you can actually go to copyright only. I just leave my metadata settings on because why not? I don't mind if people see what I'm doing. And then for this case, I'm not going to have a watermark, but I will show you guys how to do a watermark on my next export. So I don't post-process anything, and then I will do export. Now, one of the cool things is you'll be able to see these edited photos should show up here and on your hard drive. Edited photos. They're on the hard drive. They're just not registered in Lightroom because they haven't been imported. Actually, that's an important thing to know. So even if you add photos or change photos or do anything on the hard drive, when you export from Lightroom, they're being exported to the hard drive, but they're not changing in Lightroom. So to actually see them in that folder, you would actually have to import those photos again. So you would find them, click edited photos, and then import. And now you can see them in here. But I don't recommend doing that. The edited photos folder, I usually keep empty. The reason for that is because you've got this photo here, but now if you go to Socorro and you go to your attributes and you go to 5-star, now you've got duplicates because all your 5 stars have been exported and they exist here. So generally, don't import your edited photos. They're already edited in Lightroom, but for them to exist, they need to be on your hard drive, and that's where they are now. So now these photos exist. All right, so let's say I want to actually create a folder of all my edited photos that are watermarked. The way you do that is you can select all your photos that you're going to export, and you can click export. Now, find your edited photos folder in your hard drive. I go to edited photos. Now you can click this little checkbox here that says watermarked photos. And sorry, it wouldn't normally say watermark photos. You actually have to fill that in, but put it in a subfolder. Now it's important to keep it to notice if this checkbox is checked or not, because if it's checked, it's always going to create a subfolder. So I use it sparingly. One of the things that you can actually do is you could go into your hard drive and just create a subfolder called, watermarked photos. But in this case, for demonstration purposes, we're going to create a subfolder. So watermarked photos. Again, we talked about file settings. All the export settings can remain the same. The difference is now you want to add a watermark. So I have some pre-saved watermarks over here, but let's actually create a test watermark. So I just went to watermarks, edit watermark, and now I'm going to call this test watermark, and this is going to be 2 because I already did one. Now, this is where your watermark is, and you can see this is where your watermark kind of went in this field right here on the bottom right. On the right side, you can see, again, these are all your actions. So you can change your font. You can change the style. Let's make it bold. You can put it, the alignment left, center, right, but that's only the small box over here. You can change the color. I don't know why you would want anything other than white, green, or black. I mean, white, gray, or black. And then finally, for the actual opacity of the watermark, you can do that here. I usually keep it around 60, but if you move it to 100, you see it's completely white. And if you move it to 0, it's not there at all. So I keep it around 60. But you can kind of move that around depending on how see-through you want the watermark. And then finally, the size, you can increase the size, lower the size. Let's make this really big for a demonstration. And then down here under inset, this will show where the watermark is in position on your photo. I usually try to have a little bit of inset. I don't want it right at the edge. And then you can actually anchor it in different places on your photo. But bottom right is pretty standard in the art community. So I save that watermark, and I'm going to call this test watermark 2. And now I'm going to export. Now, what you'll notice is, one, that folder, again, is not created in your edited photos in Lightroom because you really don't want any photos here. And if I don't want any photos here because they're duplicated, I do Control-A under my edited photos, delete, and then instead of delete from disk, you delete them from Lightroom. So if I go to my photos now, I've got my watermark photos I just created. Again, here's that WM folder I created in the hard drive. That photo folder in the hard drive does not come up in Lightroom. That's why you don't want to create folders in your hard drive. You want to create them in Lightroom. This one that I had the export create is now here. And you can see all these photos have the test watermark 2. And now you've got a watermarked folder for all your projects that need the watermark, and then a non-watermarked folder that are for all the projects that don't need a watermark. All right, so that's pretty much it, right? You've imported your photos, you've looked at your photos, you've decided what you want to edit, what you don't want to edit, you've edited them, you've exported them, but what do you do now, right? You've got a bunch of photos, you've got your edited photos, you have your unedited photos. How do I show people what I have? You could use your folders and just sort through them like I showed you, looking for all your 5 stars and show them that. But that's not super convenient. It's not that easy to do. And really, you want to organize you want to start getting in the habit of organizing your photos in a way so that if somebody says, hey, I need a presentation of all your shark photos, give it to me in the next 10 seconds, I want that right now, you should be able to do that. And the way you do that is you use these things called collections. Now, what collections are they're folders that are not folders. Folders will actually edit on your hard drive. They'll actually create folders on your hard drive. Collections are just digital organizational folders where you can view your photos. If you have a photo in a collections folder, it will not change how it is edited in Lightroom, where it is in Lightroom, or anything like that. If you make edits to it later on, it'll also appear in the collections. So a collections is just a virtual copy of whatever photo you're trying to show. Now, to create a collection, you can go on this left side over here, and you can click that plus key and go new collections, create a collection. So this is a simple collection. So let's say I want to create a simple collection. I want to say my favorite photos. All right, so my favorite photos are going to be in this collection. This photo happened to be selected. I don't want it selected, so I'm just going to delete it from the collection. When you hit delete in a collection, it doesn't delete it from Lightroom. It doesn't do anything like that. So let's say I want this photo right here in my collection. So I'm going to put, this is one of my favorite photos. So I just drag it over. Now it's in there. Let's say I want to go to my 5-star photos. I got an attribute 5-star, and I drag that back in the collection. My favorite photos. There we go. All right. So I've got a 4-star and a 5-star. But regardless of stars, these are just the original photos. If I go into day 1 and I go back to that photo, let's say I make an edit on it, a really apparent edit. Let's make this purple. If I go back to my collection, to my favorite photos, this photo is purple. So whatever edits I make to that photo, it's going to show up in my folder and also my collections. That's because, again, collections are just virtual copies. They're nothing more. If I delete this, this is still showing up in this folder right here. Oop, at the top. All right, let's move it back to that collection. So that's my favorite photos. It's this purple one and this shark, which actually is a pretty cool photo. I'm kind of digging it. All right, so let's say you want to be even more creative though. You need those shark photos, right? Remember, you've tagged all your photos with keywords. It's super easy to find your shark photos. All you have to do is go to new collection, create a smart collection, and this allows you to add parameters to that collection. This allows you to add those attributes, to add that metadata, to add whatever it is you want to add. So I'm going to say this is my shark collection. All right, so I've got shark collection. And what I'm going to do is under here, I want to match all of the following rules. And I'm going to select text. Where is text? Sorry, it's any searchable text contains shark. And I could even go to, yeah, let's do that. All right, so now all the photos that I tagged with the word shark, they've been created in a collection. And remember, you can see all those photos here. All you have to do is click G, and that'll bring you to the grid view. And now you can see I have a full collection of all my shark photos that I've taken. And maybe I'd want more of these to be edited. So be careful of what you tag with the word shark, right? Like I probably shouldn't tag a keyword until things are edited. Although you can if you really want to view all your edited or unedited. So if you just want your shark photos that are edited, you can go to your shark collection, and then you can actually add a parameter right here. And now your rating is equal to 5 stars. And there you go. You've got your one shark photo that has been edited, and that's your collection of all your edited shark photos. So you can do multiple parameters on these collections, and you can really do whatever you want. Let's get rid of this parameter. Let's say we want to just do shark photos that, let's see, shark photos where the camera, or actually let's go to focal length is 15 15 millimeters. There you go. All these photos were taken at 15 millimeters, and I know that. Now, if I change that perimeter to 16 millimeters, you can see there's no photos in this collection because nothing fit that. Now, what I could do is I could look for all my 16 millimeter shark photos by going back to that folder. I can go to my metadata. Let's see, focal length. Oh, do I really? Maybe I don't have any. All right, let's try this. Oh, my 5 stars were selected. Focal length, 16 millimeters. All right, so this is a shark right here. This looks like a shark. So I'm gonna add shark into the keyword. All right, and now magically your shark collection. Now your shark collection has this photo because every 16 millimeter focal length photo with the keyword shark is in there. But let's get rid of that because that's not a shark. All these are sharks. Oh, and this because it still has the keyword. If you want to remove the keyword, you have to click on that photo and then actually go into your keywords and remove it. So now that photo won't show up anymore in your collection. And that is a collection. So you've gotten to your final stage. Remember, you can double click a photo to view it. You can click F to view it in full screen. You can flip through all those photos in full screen. But let's view it as a slideshow because that's your ultimate goal, right? You've got this cool collection of all your shark photos. Let's go ahead and view that as a slideshow. So you go to your slideshow and all you got to do is hit F, hit play. Oh, play over here. All right, there we go. If you hit play on the right side, it shows that as a slideshow. And this is just going to run through all your photos in your shark collection. And there you go. You've done everything in Lightroom except for the editing portion. Now, my part 2 is going to go through editing in Lightroom and all the edits that I do. But this is organization in Lightroom. And that's pretty much it. This is how you bring photos into Lightroom. You organize your folders. You select the photos you want to edit, you export the ones you're done editing, and you view them as collections later on. With that, I hope you like this video. If you like it, if you did like it, please like it here on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content like this. I hope to see you on one of my photo workshops. This will be a prerequisite to doing that because really, once you get to the site, you want to be focused on editing and just taking photos rather than the basics of Lightroom. And with that, I hope to see you soon.